then the next step in the evolution, you know, did you end up joining a socialist group yourself, and can you walk us through that?
I was very interested in socialism because at uni,
sounds nice, doesn't
in
it?
South Africa under apartheid rule, I'd studied African politics, and we'd learnt about communism, and you can imagine what they taught us in white apartheid universities about communism. So I was interested. Oh my God. That, you know, it was utter bullshit, you know. It was not it wasn't what communism was all about. We were told what a big communist Nelson Mandela was, and every other black African dictator was a communist. You know, you can be a dictator without being a communist. But anyway, look, so I was interested to know, because we had a lot of censorship in South Africa. So I was interested to learn more about socialism, communism, you know, without, well, when I could access all material I wanted to. So yeah, I started off, I thought socialist alternative might be a good idea. Because I had a good reason. I kind of wanted a bit of a crash course in Marxism. Right. And the Socialist Alternative in Brisbane offer a series, I think it's 8, it might be 10, but I think it's 8. They offer a series of weekly meetings for 8 weeks. And, you know, each new group, you go through this series of 8 sessions. And I thought, well, that'd be great. And I was actually quite impressed with the courses in West End, big library of books. And I thought, oh, okay, I can really study this stuff here. And my daughter came with me, and we went to the Socialist Alternative base, and for our first and our second introduction to Marxism, socialism. And I must say, it all sounded pretty good, you know, and I was interested. And I thought, well, you know, look, I've got some reading to do, and I'll go through these 8 sessions and I'll see. But after the second session, the guy that was leading my group with my daughter and I, at the end of our session, he said, right, he basically made it clear that we needed to decide now, after 2 hours of introduction to communism, clear that we had to make a commitment now, or else we couldn't attend the other lectures. We couldn't complete the course.
Wow, it's very...
And I said, well, yeah.
Scientology, mate. Did you have to? I mean, did they have a poster of Tom Cruise in there?
No, I don't think he's come out as a socialist.
Oh, sorry, I got my S words confused. So, yeah,
so they
okay,
kicked us out.
that's wild.
They kicked us out because I said, "There's no way I'm committing to something, knowing so little about it."
Imagine being on a date with someone for 2 hours, and they go, "Well, look, it's been fun hanging out, but if I'm gonna spend any more time with you, we have to get married. So I don't have time to fuck around here." So
that's the level of commitment they were asking me for. You spot on.
Right. So you decided to pour out your Kool-Aid on the ground and not go full Jonestown, I imagine.
Yes.
So, yeah.
In a manner of speaking.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have a badge of honor. I'm thrown out of Socialist Alternative.
Wow. Congratulations.
So, you know, But they were the ones that actually had these weird, were the worst perpetrators of all this censor, screaming censorship. You can't censor us, in the Refugee Action Collective. So then I found a group called Solidarity. They're not big in Brisbane. As of now, there's probably only 4 to 6 members in Brisbane, but they're trying to grow the group. And again, I just want to say that they're nice people,
Yeah,
so I don't want to say anything bad about them.
They're way less hardcore, in my experiences, than Socialist Alternative. They're like...
They seem more sensible to me.
Yeah, they're a bit more... They're a little less crazy, but, I mean, I think they have some classical fun... They're like a softer cult. You know what I mean? It's like the differences between the West Buckrow Church and, like, Mormons or something.
Yeah, but, you've been talking a lot about freedom of speech, and I'm very much for freedom of speech. I think it's
Stop censoring me, Dolly. You're censoring me. Stop censoring me. Sorry. Please continue.
Did you feel that?
I did.
Even though they're more sensible and one might say less aggressive in their tactics, they are obviously wanting to expand their group in Brisbane. They are big in Sydney. So there's a certain amount of grooming that goes on. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of like, they don't they're not like Socialist Alternative where it's like, look, you need to commit now. Are you saying that they're a little bit more like, hey, how you going? What are you doing on the weekend? Oh, you should come to one of these cool meetings. You know what I mean? Like they're kind of a little bit more of a long-term game.
We didn't have meetings.
No.
We didn't have meetings at that stage, so like it's
hangouts.
You need to come to the conference in Sydney. Like there was always conferences in Sydney, and they were nice people, and so when I speak of solidarity, I'm not just speaking of the people I met in Brisbane. I'm speaking of a lot of people that I got in contact with in Sydney, and that these people were very well educated, very erudite, very articulate, and the arguments were good. I never got drawn into the far left as much as you did, because I always had my reservations on 2 things. The first one was, according to, I think, pretty much every socialist I've met, or Marxist or whatever you want to call them, when the revolution comes, and that's it, there's got to be a bloody revolution. And I've seen enough blood, murder, dying and suffering in South Africa. I don't want to go and murder anyone. But there has to be a bloody revolution for socialism to exist. So I never bought into that. And the other idea I never bought into is once the revolution has happened and a socialist government, socialist system is in place, it'll be some sort of utopian paradise. The studies that I was doing, reading, I could not find one single example of a successful socialist, Marxist, communist state, society that had lasted,
Well, their answer would be it's because we didn't, they'll always have excuses. They'll be like, oh, we didn't kill enough people. We didn't kill the right people.
Yeah, and I used to wonder. Because there was so much. So the socialist groups in Brisbane were very much distinct groups. They never got together. And I used to think, well, let's say we have a revolution. At the moment, even before the friggin' revolution, the three biggest socialist groups
all fucking hate each other.
They hate each other. How the hell are these people going to be the vanguard that's going to lead us to some utopian paradise? We'll be killing each other.
Yeah.
It just didn't make sense to me, Shane.
Yeah. Well, you were a lot more level-headed than I was. I was a fucking lunatic.
I was older than you. You should have seen me when I was your age. I was out
of your mind, were you? So can you tell me how the process? So you were hanging out with this socialist group called Solidarity, and let's speed up the timeline and try to keep this interview from being too long, although it's all interesting, but people don't watch long videos. So tell us some more, and through this process, how did that all interact with the refugees?
I became disillusioned with what we were doing in terms of political protests and so on, because we weren't growing our movement. In fact,
sorry, is
we
this
were
RAC
actually
or
in many
the
cases,
Socialist Party?
Well,
the refugee
actually,
movement?
both of them,
Both of them, okay.
Because the socialist groups use social justice causes to further their ends.
To grow their party?
To grow their party. So they will go to a meeting of trade unionists.
Okay, yep, continue.
I was invited by Socialist Comrade to go to a trade union thing. Apparently, there were a lot of unions in Brisbane, and they were all stopping work at the same time and going to Emma Miller Place and having some sort of a kind of a speak out. And I was invited to go. So I did. I was interested to hear about, trade unions and how they operated in this country. Anyway, I wanted to listen to the speeches and everything, but the person who invited me gave me a whole bunch of magazines, because all the socialist groups have their magazines, and just wander through the crowd and sell as many as you can. And I'm saying, I don't know anything about fucking trade unions. Yeah, it's a very different scene in South Africa. Okay, we've got an article, a short article in the magazine about trade unions. Just read that, remember a few key points, and you're good to go. So the pressure on me to sell these magazines was immense. I don't know where we started with that one, but that was.
We were talking about how these socialist groups sort of pretend they're really interested in these causes, but underneath it, these are just ways of them growing their party for the ultimate revolution.
Well, here's a doozy, because we are speeding this up.
Mm-hmm.
I still get blown away when I think of it. So towards the end of it, I was getting disillusioned with it. I was being encouraged more and more just to sell magazines and things that, and talk about things that I really was not properly educated to talk about, and things that I didn't agree with. So I'd been to visit the Brisbane Detention Centre to visit asylum seekers there, offer support and so on. And some of those people were let out of the detention center. And I'd always give them my phone number and email and say, when you're out, call me. Because I knew they faced a lot of difficulties when they got out. So I was getting more and more involved in helping these people. And not a lot of help was available at the time. And it was hard to get them help, but we did it. Anyway, I got very involved in doing this, and I was really making a difference to people's lives. For example, we're 2 days away from being homeless, and it was only through my intervention that they weren't, because they didn't understand English very well, they didn't know what they were entitled to, and so on, and I did. That's the only reason I was able to help them. And I was helping a lot of people. And I kind of thought, well, this is what it's all about. You know, I'm going to rallies, I'm protesting, you know, people power. Plus, you know, I choose to spend my time actually doing some positive stuff. And I'm not going to say who and which parties or whatever, but a lot of people, once they found out what I was doing, screamed at me. They basically shamed me, and they said, you're doing welfareism.
So these are people on the far left saying that you were doing the wrong thing. And what do they think you should be doing than actually stopping refugees from individual refugees from you know, becoming homeless and helping them learn English and things like that?
Well, I should have been obviously selling magazines and convincing people to come to our meetings and signing them up to become members of the socialist group. I shouldn't be out there. The justification given to me, you know, and when I said, you know, look, this isn't welfareism, this is just humanity in action, you know. Yeah, the justification given to me is, if I spent my time building up the party, ultimately we'd have a revolution, and there wouldn't be any more refugees in the world, in this Marxist paradise, you know. So I'm wasting my time helping 5, 10, 15, 20 people. You know, it's a waste of time.
Right. It's very religious. It's like, why, you know, help people when, you know, when the rapture happens and there's the bloody revolution, we'll have utopia afterwards, and then all the refugees will get free lollipops and you'll get to ride, you know, horses up and down chocolate golden streets or whatever. That kind of mentality.
Exactly.
Fantasyland. Fantasyland. Why help? Next time you go to help someone, Julie, I'm going to scold you, and because you shouldn't be doing that.
What am I doing wrong?
Sorry? I'm just
You're going to
joking
scold
around.
me, sorry.
I'm just joking around. So that's pretty interesting, isn't it? They wanted you to not, in summary, instead of actually helping the refugees, they wanted you to build a party because that's more important than actually helping people. That's an incredible insight to the mentality of the far left.
And if they actually were serious about that, they would want to broaden their movement, wouldn't they?
They would.
And get as many people on board. But what they actually do, as I said before, is they alienate everybody by refusing to without compromising on the message, refusing to tone down the language and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
it's almost that maybe these refugee action collectives would be a lot more functional if these ideologues with their own agendas weren't involved.
Absolutely. Yeah. or if at least they understood the idea. It seems to me, Shane, you must have experienced it in your anarchist days. When you have a confrontation with the police, when you go on a march, when you go to a rally where, the adrenaline kicks in and you kind of feel, hey, like I'm doing something, I'm changing the world, and the adrenaline really gets in. Going.
I had plenty of adrenaline when the cops ran up and battened me to the ground. I know the feeling. I've got the scar.
Exactly. Yeah.